Welcome back to Montevallo. We're here live with Fat Bastard. We'll also be here this Saturday and next Saturday with all the live coverage of the kiln. Now, the art of the Anagama kiln is nothing new, and it dates back to ancient cultures in Japan. Here's Dr. Don Wood to tell us more about the history of the Anagama kiln.
This is a storage jar from the Echizen kilns in west central Japan. Dates to about the year 1500 or so. And what's really important and wonderful about this piece is the colors on the glazes, the blues and the grayish whites that you see. This is all natural. It's the result of the wood ash settling on the piece during the firing. Usually you'll get green, greenish browns and things like that, and to come up with the blue and the white is just really almost miraculous. This would have been a very, very special piece when they unloaded the kiln to see that these colors came out this way. The Anagama, the technology for the Anagama was introduced to Japan sometime in the 5th or 6th century from China and Korea. There was a huge influx of cultural influence from the mainland to Japan at that time, and many of these advanced technologies were picked up by the Japanese. And also there were a lot of Korean and Chinese potters working in Japan at that time as well. So it's a technology that is, 1600 years old now in Japan. And it has evolved. Anagama, the name literally means cave kiln, and some of the more ancient ones, they literally dug caves into the sides of hillsides, and that was the kiln itself. Of course, now they tend to be just built on a flat surface with fire bricks that form the shape of the Anagama, but you'll still see them built into hillsides also, where that provides a natural draw for the flame and the ash to be brought up. This is also from the Echizen kilns, mid-19th century or so. And this unassuming little jar was one of the most popular Echizen pieces for every woman in Japan. In Japanese, it's known as an ohaguro tsubo, which means a tooth black jar. And women in ancient Japan, before they opened up to the West in the mid-19th century, a married woman would blacken her teeth after she was married. And in a little jar like this would be kept the tooth black. In an Anagama, it is purely, sort of accidental science. Every time you fire a kiln, you learn more about that particular kiln, where it's best to place the pieces, what kind of wood to use, what time of year it's best to fire also, because all those things will affect on what happens in the kiln and how the pieces turn out. This is a little seed storage jar from the Bizen kilns. Bizen is in the central part on the east coast of the main island of Honshu in Japan. It dates to about, the 16th or 17th century. And Bizen is very famous for its unglazed pieces. There's no natural wood ash on them or anything, and yet we see amazing color combinations and patterns in a piece like this. This is a technique that's known as hirasuke bizen, which means basically ghost images. And how it's achieved, they take the straw from rice after it's dried, and they soak it in seawater, so it's very, very salty, and then they wrap it around these pieces, and during the firing of the kiln, it burns away, and it leaves these patterns that we see. And they're still doing this today, but they don't take the care and the time that they did in the early times. For example, in this one, the patterning is all over the inside and even on the bottom. So this piece was completely wrapped in the soaked straw. Nowadays, they'll just do it on the outside to give it, a wonderful color, but it's not as elaborate as this is. I'm not quite sure when the first Anagama kiln was built in the United States. My guess would be sometime in the 20th century. There are Anagama kilns around the United States. I mean, we have, 2 here in Alabama that I know of. I know there's a really successful one in Minnesota. There are some in California and up in New England as well. So it's a tradition that is, getting new life by moving here to the United States. Not that it's dying out in Japan at all. It's not. I mean, it's tremendously popular in Japan and is used everywhere. These are also from the Bizen kilns. They date to the 17th century or so, and they're known as meimei-zara. And these were special little plates for the tea ceremony that they would have served a little snack on during the tea ceremony. They are very, very special. There's only one other set known, and that set is in the museum at the Bizen kiln site. They were after this effect. They knew how to achieve these different marks on this. So each one is, they're basically the same, but each one's different in its own right also. I had one colleague at one point say, mud pies with handles. And I said, yes, but what mud pies and what handles? They're really very, very special set. You'll see the little indentation in each one. That's just so they're not perfect. Each one has its own character, its own personality.
We're here with Kate Hamilton at the Anagama kiln. Kate, could you tell me about some of your pieces and what you hope the outcome of them are?
Yeah, well, I'm just out of Ceramics 1, and so I was kind of focusing on simple forms, and I wanted to focus on teapots, but with a time constraint of like a week and a half, that was a slow process, so I began throwing other forms and kind of became enamored with the spout form, so I began to throw a bunch of little spouts and place them all over things, and they kind of came to life as barnacles. So, but they're all over the kiln, and I just hope to get a good idea of like what I can get from each area in the kiln, so with different forms. So,
thank you. We're going to go over to Bruce Finkley and Tony Wright.
Thanks, Megan.
This is by
I'm here with Tony Wright, and Tony, on Sunday, I know that y'all were loading the kiln, and tell us just a little bit about the process of placing all the pieces inside of the kiln.
Well, there are a lot of pieces, so it's a several-day process. I got here about the middle of it, and Dr. Meyer knows from experience what areas are going to give different effects, so it's a matter of just figuring out what you want, or the best chances of what you want. Mm-hmm. So fortunately, my friends Chris Greenman and Chris Kelly got up early this morning and got my pieces exactly where I wanted them. So it's a matter of experience and trying to do what's best for the work, but it's all up to the kiln, so we'll find out in about a week and a half what really happens.
So how many pieces were actually placed in the kiln? And you're watching some video that we took on Sunday of the loading, but how many pieces are in there right now?
Oh, I have no idea. Hundreds, thousands. There were a lot of small things. I mean, sometimes we have lots of big work, and this time there wasn't as much really big work. So there's a lot of work in there.
Okay, well, Tony.
Any guess?
Well, Tony, thank you so much. We wish you the best of luck with your pieces. We hope they turn out how you want them. And now we're going to head over to Tamika.
Thank you, Bruce. We'll be right back after this break.